Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy, Carl Jung's Black Books, and I am your host, Gwydion. If that is a little confusing. First, there are two kinds of people in this world, as we all know: wheat and chaff, sheep and goats, Jews and Gentiles, Republicans and Democrats, men and women. No, there's far more than two kinds of people in this world, isn't there? But for the sake of what I'm saying right now, if you're more the sort of person who's like, hey, what's my buddy Gwydion doing on this Chicken Philosophy channel? If that is more describes you, then you're on the one hand. And if you on the other hand are looking for someone to like read Carl Jung, analyze Carl Jung, focus on Carl Jung, blow smoke up his arse, whatever, just click thumbs down and go back to the main menu and keep searching. However, if you are here for the Carl Jung and you don't mind a lot of unnecessary interruptions and personal anecdotes and stream of consciousness, then you are on the other hand, if that makes sense. You can be in both hands. If you're in both hands, or you're just in the one where it's like, what's Gwydion up to, then I recommend, yesterday I had the opportunity to interview the three closest people that could possibly be to me, if that makes sense, namely Edward and Pymander and Frater BT. So all four of us in a room together, this very room, having a conversation which will help shed some light on the fact that maybe, like, from your perspective, like, I had a different name before and now I'm Gwydion. That'll make sense after you see this thing I'm about to point to in the corner. So just to be clear, that's better than this. What I'm going to point you to is a better video to watch. More fun, a better half-hour experience. And then if you want to, you can come back to this later, or you can watch it afterward if you've got a full hour to blow. So anyway, here's the link. Bye! Bye-bye! Click the link. Bye! Now that they're gone. The confrontation with the world. How are you, by the way? Oh, how delightful. It's one of those Jacoby things, if you know what I mean. Isn't it delightful? It looks like it came from a fancy beachfront hotel a little over a year ago. Like maybe a year and 3-4 months ago. Looks like that. Ooh, that's hot. Let's wait a little while before sip number 2. Jesus. Okay. In 1928, Jung painted a mandala of a golden castle in the calligraphic volume of Liber Novus. This red book here. It struck him that the mandala had something Chinese about it. Shortly afterward, Richard Wilhelm sent him The Secret of the Golden Flower, asking him to write a commentary on it. Wilhelm had spoken at the Psychological Club in 1921 on the I Ching. You might call it I Ching. You would be wrong. And Jung later got to know him at Count Kieserling's School of Wisdom in Darmstadt. Jung was struck by the text and its timing. Here's Jung talking in tiny font. The text gave me an undreamed of confirmation of my ideas about the mandala and the circumambulation of the center. There's like a theme going on between this and the other chicken philosophy playlist. Anyway, something about circumambulation. Right, yes, where were we? Mm-hmm. This was the first event which broke through my isolation. I became aware of an affinity. I could establish ties with someone and something. All right. The significance of this is reflected in the lines he wrote beneath the painting of Yellow Castle. Jung was struck between the correspondences between the imaginary and conceptions, the imagery and conceptions of this text, and his own paintings and fantasies, and the fate that had brought him and Wilhelm together. On May 25, 1929, he wrote to Wilhelm, quote, "Fate appears to have given us the role of two bridge pillars which carry the bridge between East and West." End quote. I resemble that remark. Where the heck is it? Here it is. He wrote the introduction and he ended up with his name on the book. Wilhelm/Jung. When you're big enough, all you have to do is very little. People want to put your name on things. Why don't we read that introduction, shall we? Yeah, it's only 2.5 pages of this size. How can am I able to read it with bare eyes? Maybe. Forward to the second German edition. My deceased friend, wait a minute, he wasn't deceased. Maybe he wrote more than one? Well, I don't know. All right. My deceased friend, Richard Wilhelm, the co-author of this book, sent me the text of The Secret of the Golden Flower at a time that was critical for my own work. I had been occupied with the investigation of the processes of the collective unconscious since the year 1913 and had obtained results that seemed to me questionable in more than one respect. They not only lay far beyond everything known to academic psychology, with academic in quotes, but also overstepped the borders. The music is affecting my voice, sorry. Yes, where were we? The borders of medical, strictly personal psychology. These findings had to do with an extensive phenomenology to which hitherto known categories and methods could no longer be applied. My results, based on 15 years of effort, have nothing to do with The Secret of the Golden Flower. Or maybe they do, I don't know. Maybe he's coming to a point. He's just like, oh, you want me to write a foreword to your book? Okay, let me tell you about me. Yes. Seemed inconclusive because no possible comparison offered itself. I knew of no realm of human experience with which I might have backed up my findings with some degree of assurance. The only analogies, and these, I must say, were far removed in time, I found scattered through the reports of let me get the magnifying glass. Scattered through the reports of heresiologists. All right. Here we go. This connection did not in any way ease my task. On the contrary, it made it more difficult, because the Gnostic systems consist only in part of immediate psychic experiences, the greater part being speculative and systematizing revisions. since we possess only very few detailed texts, and since most of what is known comes from the reports of Christian opponents, we have, to say the least, an inadequate knowledge of the history, as well as of the contents of this confused and strange literature. Nakamati, anybody? It's right there. Maybe we'll read something from it one day. Any requests? Yeah, where were we? It's so difficult to encompass. Moreover, considering the fact that a period of not less than from 1700 to 1800 years separates the present from that past, support from that field seemed to me extraordinarily risky. Again, the connections were in part of a secondary character and left gaps in the main issue, which made it impossible for me to make use of the Gnostic material. The text that Wilhelm sent me helped me out of this embarrassment. It contained exactly those pieces which I had sought for in vain amongst the Gnostics. Thus the text became a welcome opportunity to publish, at least in provisional form, some of the essential results of my investigations. At that time, it seemed unimportant to me that the secret of the Golden Flower is not only a Taoist text of Chinese yoga. China. Sorry, that was more of a Schwarzenegger than a Trump. But neither really sort of fell in the void between them. Anyway. But also an alchemical tract. However, a subsequent deeper study of Latin tracts has corrected my outlook and shown me that the alchemical nature of the text is of prime significance. But this, to be sure, is not the place to go into more details about that point. No, a page and a half is plenty, Mr. Jung. I shall only emphasize the fact that it was the text of The Golden Flower that first put me in the direction of the right track. For we have in medieval alchemy, I wonder what the mood of the next track's going to be, the long-sought connecting link between gnosis and the process of the collective unconscious, observable to us today in modern man. I take this opportunity to point out certain misunderstandings to which even well-informed readers of this book fell victim. Not infrequently, people thought that my purpose in publishing the book was to put into the hands of the public a method of achieving happiness. In total misapprehension of all that I say in my commentary, such readers tried to imitate the method, in quotes, described in the Chinese text. Let us hope that these representatives of spiritual profundity were few in number. Another misunderstanding gave rise to the opinion that in the commentary I have pictured, to a certain extent, my psychotherapeutic method, which, it was said, consisted in my suggesting to my patients Eastern ideas for therapeutic purposes. I do not believe that there is anything in my commentary lending itself to that sort of superstition. In any case, such an opinion is altogether erroneous and is based on the widespread conception that psychology is an invention for the definite purpose and for a definite purpose and not an empirical science. To this category belongs the equally superficial as well as unintelligent opinion that the idea of the collective unconscious is metaphysical, in quotes, Right. Period. Full stop. It is a question of an empirical concept to be put alongside the concept of instinct, as it is obvious to anyone who will read with some attention. I have added to this second edition the address in honor of Richard Wilhelm, given by me at the memorial celebration, May 10, 1930, in Munich. It has already been published in the first English edition of 1931. All right, so, I mean, obviously that must have been one of, like, several things Carl Jung wrote in this. Because he's, like, I think he did commentary for it or something. I don't know, but that was in the beginning, and it said Carl Jung at the end of it. So I figured that had something to do with whatever he's talking about now, but perhaps I was wrong. Is the music a little distracting? Good. Picking up right where we left off. Oh shit, where did we leave off? I don't know. Yes, between East and West. It was only later that he realized that the alchemical nature of the text was important. On September 10, 1929, he wrote to Wilhelm, quote, "I am thrilled by this text which stands so close to our unconscious." End quote. Jung's commentary on The Secret of the Golden Flower was a turning point. It was his first public discussion of the significance of the mandala. For the first time, he anonymously presented 3 of his own paintings from Liber Novus as examples of European mandalas and commented on them. To Wilhelm, he wrote on October 28, 1929, concerning the mandalas in the volume, quote, "The images amplify one another precisely through their diversity, through their diversity, they give an excellent image of the effort of the unconscious European spirit to grasp Eastern eschatology." End quote. Eschatology, I believe, is poop, right? Scat? It has scat in it? No, I know, it's religion. This connection between the, quote, European unconscious spirit, end quote, and Eastern eschatology became one of the major themes in Jung's work in the 1930s. He explored it through further collaborations with the Indologists Wilhelm Hauer and Heinrich Zimmer. At the same time, the form of the work was crucial. Rather than revealing the full details of his own experiment or those of his patients, Jung used the parallels with The Secret of the Golden Flower as an indirect way of speaking up about it, much as he had begun to do in Chapter 5 of Psychological Types. This allegorical method now became his preferred form. Rather than write directly of his experiences, he commented on analogous developments in esoteric practices, most of all in medieval alchemy. Let's take a little sip break. Do a little sipping. It's not so hot now. Whew. I can't talk over talking. 1 second. Alright. Shortly afterward, Jung abruptly left off working on Liber Novus. The last full-page image was left unfinished, and he stopped transcribing the text. In 1932, he stopped writing in the Black Books. He later recalled, quote, "When I had began to give many lectures and to write small essays, all that time I gave lectures in many places." End quote. A number of these were collected together in the edited volumes, Contributions to Analytical Psychology. parentheses 1928, and parentheses. And Ziel and Problem der Gegenwart. Bracket parentheses, problems of the soul in the present time, and bracket parentheses, 1931, end parentheses. Footnote 353, if you were, interested. Thus, his confrontation with his soul drew to a close, and the confrontation with the world began. He saw these activities as a form of compensation for the years of inner preoccupation. In 1932, he received the Literature Prize of the city of Zurich. On November 25, he wrote to Ruth Bailey, quote, "Since I'm getting dangerously famous in this old continent, I've no peace and leisure anymore. The Negro spiritual says, quote, steal away to Jesus, end quote. And I say, quote, steal away to Bollingen, end quote, if I can help it." I don't get it. And sorry about the arcane use of the Latin word for the absence of color. It was a different time. I'm sure he meant it well. He would talk about, I'm really interested in Negro spiritual practices. So he wasn't saying, that same word. A lot of it would have been context back in those days, because that was the word they used. Okay, well, it's another one of those situations like came up on the other playlist where that's the end of a section, but that will make this a relatively short episode, which I'm okay with. How about you? All right. So, once again, if you're still here, if you were a little curious about the thing I pointed to in the beginning, here, this is something Taoist from the White Cloud Temple. Footage from my trip to Shanghai, where my dad was born. Shanghai, China. He wasn't ethnically Chinese, but he was born there. So anyway, if you want to see 4 of me talking to each other, 4 aspects of one person, or perhaps 4 identical quadruplets, one never knows, then click here. Click in this link. All right. Bye-bye.